Welcome to Deadlines and Dirty Dishes. I'm your host, Alison Quinn, virtual assistant, online business manager, and founder of my own flexible, freelance-powered business. By day, I help entrepreneurs get organised, gain momentum, and stop doing it all alone. By night, I'm a solo mum navigating the beautiful chaos of life with my daughter. This podcast is for you, the self-employed, the overcommitted, and the curious. I promise honest insights, behind-the-scenes real talk, and practical tips for building a business that works on your terms. No sugarcoating, just authentic conversations about balancing deadlines and dirty dishes. So whether you're folding laundry, commuting, or stealing a moment of peace, I'm glad you're here with me today. Let's get into it. Today, we're diving into something I know resonates with just about everyone listening: how to manage overwhelm and maintain productivity when it feels like everything is coming at you at once. Whether you're an entrepreneur juggling multiple projects, a professional with competing priorities, or simply someone trying to balance work and life commitments, that sensation of drowning in tasks is all too familiar. The truth is, how we handle those moments of overwhelm can make the difference between moving forward productively or spiraling into stress and inefficiency. Over the next 45 minutes, I'll be sharing strategies that have saved me countless times in my own business and that I've seen work wonders for my clients. So if your inbox is overflowing, your to-do list seems endless, or you're just feeling stuck in that treading water sensation, stay with me. You're in exactly the right place. We've all been there. You wake up to a calendar notification reminding you of that deadline you've been pushing to the back of your mind. You open your laptop to find 17 new urgent emails competing for your attention. Your to-do list from yesterday remains largely untouched, and somehow 3 more major tasks have materialized overnight. That knot in your stomach, that's overwhelm. But what exactly does overwhelm look like in our day-to-day lives? It's that sensation of looming deadlines casting shadows over everything else you're trying to accomplish. It's work mounting up like a paper tower that threatens to topple at any moment. It's watching your inbox grow faster than you can possibly respond, each message bringing its own set of demands and expectations. The interesting thing about pressure is that a little bit can actually be tremendously beneficial. That sweet spot of healthy pressure often drives creativity, focus, and efficiency. It's why many of us work well when a deadline is approaching, but not too close. There's a tipping point where productive pressure transforms into something far more problematic. When overwhelm truly takes hold, our productivity doesn't just dip, it can collapse entirely. Tasks that would normally take 30 minutes suddenly require 2 hours. Decision-making becomes paralyzing. The ability to prioritize effectively vanishes just when you need it most. But the impacts stretch far beyond our work output. This level of pressure creates a domino effect throughout our entire lives. The stress chemicals flooding our systems don't just make us feel anxious, they create physical responses. Our sleep suffers as we lie awake mentally cycling through everything we haven't yet accomplished. And poor sleep is perhaps the cruelest irony of overwhelm. It robs us of the very energy and mental clarity we desperately need to get back on track. The cycle becomes vicious. Overwhelm leads to stress, which leads to poor sleep, which reduces our capacity to handle workload effectively, which deepens the overwhelm. Without intervention, this pattern can continue spinning for days, weeks, or even months. What's particularly challenging is how overwhelm distorts our perception. Tasks that are actually manageable suddenly seem impossible. The distance between where you are and where you need to be appears vast and unbridgeable. Your usual confidence in your abilities begins to waver. The paradox of overwhelm is both fascinating and frustrating. The more we need to accomplish, the less capable we become of actually doing so. It's like trying to run through quicksand. The harder you struggle, the deeper you sink. This counterproductive cycle is particularly cruel. As the pressure mounts, our productivity plummets. We find ourselves working longer hours, but somehow accomplishing less. Our efficiency evaporates precisely when we need it most. The stress chemicals flooding our system actively sabotage our ability to think clearly, plan effectively, and execute competently. I've experienced this countless times in my own business. You know that sensation of being incredibly busy all day, responding to emails, attending calls, putting out fires, only to reach the end of your workday and realise you haven't actually moved the needle on any of your important projects. That's the overwhelm paradox in action. It's like treading water in the middle of the ocean. You're expending massive amounts of energy just to stay afloat, but you're not actually swimming towards shore. You're working harder than ever, but not making meaningful progress. Your calendar is packed with activity that feels productive but doesn't generate actual results. What makes this cycle particularly insidious is how it hijacks our perspective. When we're in this state, we can't see the forest for the trees. Every task feels equally urgent. Everything seems impossibly complex. Our ability to differentiate between what matters and what doesn't becomes compromised. We lose the capacity to zoom out and see the bigger picture. The mental toll compounds the problem. Self-doubt creeps in as we wonder why we can't handle what seems manageable to others. We start questioning our abilities, our systems, perhaps even our career choices. This doubt further erodes our productivity, creating a downward spiral that's increasingly difficult to escape. Breaking this cycle requires more than just working harder. In fact, doubling down on effort often makes things worse. What's needed instead are strategic approaches that address both the practical aspects of the workload and the psychological dimensions of overwhelm. Without effective strategies to interrupt this pattern, we risk not only our productivity, but our well-being. The good news is that there are practical, actionable approaches that can help us regain control, restore our effectiveness, and transform overwhelm back into manageable pressure. Let's talk about strategy number 1. Face your challenges head on. In the immortal words of Mark Twain, eat that frog. This vivid, slightly uncomfortable metaphor conveys a powerful productivity principle. If eating a live frog is the worst thing you have to do all day, best to do it first thing in the morning. Once that's done, the rest of your day can only get better. Now, I don't know about you, but I've never actually eaten a frog. However, I certainly recognise that queasy feeling in my stomach when facing a task I've been dreading. We all have these frogs in our workload, those challenging, complex, or simply unpleasant tasks that we find every possible excuse to avoid. The problem with avoidance is that it's actively harmful to our productivity. Every time we postpone that difficult client conversation, delay starting that complex proposal, or put off dealing with that spreadsheet of doom, we're not just delaying the task itself. We're creating a psychological burden that weighs on us throughout the day. That dreaded task lurks in the back of your mind, consuming mental bandwidth even when you're technically working on something else. It's like trying to watch a movie while knowing there's an unpaid bill on your kitchen counter. You might be physically present, but your mind keeps drifting back to that unresolved issue. This mental tax is far more expensive than we realise. Research shows that the anticipatory stress of avoiding difficult tasks can be more draining than the energy required to actually complete them. Our brains catastrophize, making the avoided task seem more monstrous with each passing hour. By directly confronting your most challenging task first, you harness your peak mental energy when you need it most. Morning hours, before decision fatigue sets in, are typically when our willpower reserves are fullest. Using this prime mental state to tackle your toughest challenge gives you the best chance of success. There's also an incredible psychological benefit to facing your challenges head on. The relief and confidence that come from conquering your biggest obstacle early creates momentum that carries through your entire day. That feeling of accomplishment becomes a source of energy rather than the drain you anticipated. I've found that on days when I successfully eat my frog first thing, my productivity doesn't just improve for that single task, it elevates everything else I do. The mental clarity that comes from removing that psychological burden is like a productivity superpower. So tomorrow morning, identify your frog. What's the one task you're most tempted to avoid? That's where you start. Face it directly, tackle it immediately, and watch how the rest of your workload suddenly feels more manageable in comparison. Now, once you've decided to face that challenging task head on, you might need a little push to actually get started. This brings us to our second strategy, harnessing the power of mantras. Mantras aren't just for meditation retreats or yoga classes. They're practical tools that can snap us out of overwhelm and into action. My personal favourite is JFDI. Just focus and do it, or just flipping do it, if we're being polite. I'll let you imagine what the F might stand for in my less polite version, which, if I'm being completely honest, is the one I use most days. There's something about condensing your motivation into a short, punchy phrase that cuts through the noise of overwhelm. When I'm staring at my screen, feeling paralysed by a mountain of tasks, mentally repeating JFDI helps me bypass the overthinking and simply begin. The simplicity is the point. It interrupts the spiral of procrastination. I find mantras particularly effective because they speak directly to our emotional brain rather than our logical one. When we're overwhelmed, it's rarely because we don't logically understand what needs to be done. It's because our emotional brain is putting up roadblocks. A good mantra doesn't try to reason with these emotions. It simply redirects them. Another mantra I use when I'm feeling particularly scattered is one thing at a time. It sounds obvious, but when overwhelm strikes, we often try to mentally juggle every single task simultaneously, which is precisely what creates that sensation of drowning. This simple phrase reminds me to narrow my focus to just the task at hand. During lengthy projects, I sometimes use progress over perfection. As someone with perfectionist tendencies, I can get stuck in endless revisions instead of moving forward. This mantra gives me permission to prioritize forward momentum. The beauty of mantras is their versatility. You can create ones specific to your particular challenges. If you tend to overthink decisions, maybe trust your gut works for you. If you struggle with imposter syndrome, perhaps I've solved harder problems before might be your go-to phrase. The key is finding words that resonate with you personally. The most effective mantras feel like they're cutting through your specific brand of mental resistance. They should feel a bit like a firm but friendly nudge from someone who knows you well. Try writing your chosen mantra somewhere visible, on a sticky note on your monitor, as your phone background, or even as a recurring calendar reminder. Having visual cues reinforces the message precisely when you need it most. Remember, mantras aren't magic spells, but they are powerful pattern interrupters. When overwhelming feelings start to take hold, a well-chosen mantra can be the circuit breaker that resets your thinking and gets you moving again. Building on those mantras, let's talk about creating an environment that actively fights against overwhelm through positive affirmations. While mantras are phrases you repeat to yourself, affirmations take this concept one step further by literally surrounding your physical space with encouraging messages. Think about it. Our workspaces are where overwhelm often hits hardest. So why not transform these spaces into sources of encouragement rather than stress? Positive affirmations strategically placed around your environment can interrupt negative thought patterns before they take hold. Unlike mantras, which you actively repeat, affirmations work more passively. They catch your eye throughout the day, subtly reinforcing supportive messages when you need them most. It's like having a team of cheerleaders scattered around your workspace, ready with exactly the right words when your confidence wavers. I recommend starting by identifying the specific doubts or anxieties that typically fuel your overwhelm. Do you question your ability to meet deadlines? Worry about the quality of your work? Feel like you're constantly falling behind? Create affirmations that directly counter these thoughts. For example, if you frequently think, "I'll never get through all this," place an affirmation nearby that states, "I accomplish important work one step at a time." If imposter syndrome strikes with, "I'm not qualified for this," counter it with, "My unique perspective adds value to this project." The placement of these affirmations matters tremendously. Your computer monitor or laptop is prime real estate. A small sticky note on the edge with, "I've handled challenges like this before," can work wonders during difficult tasks. Your planner or notebook is another strategic location, especially if it contains your to-do lists. Don't limit yourself to traditional formats either. Change your phone lock screen to display an encouraging message. Use a custom coffee mug with an affirmation printed on it. Set calendar notifications that pop up with positive phrases during times you typically experience energy dips. What I find particularly effective is placing affirmations near transition points in your day, by your keys, on the bathroom mirror, or next to the coffee machine. These moments between activities are when our minds often race ahead to all we haven't accomplished yet, making them perfect opportunities for positive intervention. The language of your affirmations should feel authentic to you. Overly saccharine phrases might not resonate if they feel disconnected from your personality. It's perfectly fine to include humour or even a bit of gentle sarcasm if that feels more genuine. The goal isn't to pretend problems don't exist. It's to remind yourself of your capacity to handle them. Phrases like, "This is temporary," "I've solved harder problems before," or "Done is better than perfect." Acknowledge challenges while emphasizing your ability to overcome them. Remember to update your affirmations periodically. As your challenges evolve, so should the messages you surround yourself with. This keeps them fresh and prevents them from fading into the background of your awareness. Now, let's tackle one of my absolute favorite strategies for managing overwhelm: breaking down those mountain-sized tasks into manageable molehills. I call this the brick-by-brick approach. When you're staring down an enormous project, your brain's natural reaction is often to panic. That fight or flight response kicks in, and suddenly you're either frantically working without direction or avoiding the task altogether. Neither helps you actually make progress. Think about building a wall, which, coincidentally, is exactly what overwhelming tasks can feel like. You'd never attempt to lift an entire wall at once. Instead, you'd lay one brick, secure it, then move to the next. The same principle applies to your workload. Creating lists is your blueprint for this brick-by-brick construction. When everything is swirling in your head, it always seems bigger and more chaotic than it actually is. Getting those tasks onto paper or into a digital system immediately creates a sense of control. I've found that the simple act of listing everything out provides immediate relief. Suddenly, what felt infinite becomes finite. You can see the boundaries of what you're dealing with, and that alone makes it more manageable. But not all lists are created equal. A random collection of tasks might help temporarily, but structured lists transform your productivity. Start with a brain dump. Get everything out of your head without judgment. Then comes the crucial step of organising and prioritising. When I'm feeling particularly overwhelmed, I use the 4-quadrant method: urgent and important, important but not urgent, urgent but not important, and neither urgent nor important. This simple matrix helps me see what genuinely needs my attention first. Another approach is what I call the energy mapping method. I organise tasks based on the mental or creative energy they require, then match them to the times of day when I typically have that type of energy available. High focus tasks get scheduled during my morning peak hours, while administrative tasks might be better suited for my mid-afternoon lull. Some people prefer the eat the elephant approach, breaking one massive project into sequential steps. Others work better with the Swiss cheese method, poking holes in a large project by completing quick, easy tasks, first to build momentum. The beauty of list making is the psychological reward it provides. There's genuine neurological satisfaction in crossing items off. Your brain releases dopamine with each completed task, creating a positive feedback loop that keeps you motivated to continue. Don't underestimate the power of physically crossing things out. Whether you're drawing a line through an item or checking a digital box, That visual confirmation of progress is incredibly validating. It proves you're not treading water, you're actually moving forward. When you're feeling stuck, sometimes the best approach is to break tasks down even further. What seems like one task might actually be 5 smaller ones. Update website could become gather new content, select images, draft copy, upload changes, and test functionality. Suddenly, you have clear starting points instead of one overwhelming directive. Remember that breaking things down isn't just about making tasks smaller, it's about making them clearer. Vague directives like improve marketing are overwhelm factories. Specific tasks like write email subject lines for Tuesday's campaign give your brain exactly what it needs to get started. Let's talk about the art of delegation, arguably one of the most underutilized skills when we're drowning in work. Once you've gone through the process of visualizing your workload through lists and breakdowns, you gain a remarkable clarity about what's actually on your plate. This clarity isn't just helpful for your own organisation, it's the first crucial step toward effective delegation. When you can see everything laid out before you, patterns start to emerge. You'll notice tasks that repeatedly cause you stress, assignments that consistently take up disproportionate amounts of time, or responsibilities that simply don't align with your core strengths. These are your prime candidates for delegation. Here's the thing about feeling overwhelmed. It's often a signal, not just a state of mind. It's your system sending up flares saying, I cannot reasonably handle everything currently assigned to me. And yet, so many of us ignore these signals, pushing through with a misplaced sense of obligation or the dangerous belief that nobody else could possibly do these tasks as well as we can. Delegation isn't admitting defeat. It's strategic resource allocation. Think about it this way. Every minute you spend struggling through a task that drains you is a minute not spent on work that energizes you and delivers maximum value. I find that delegation resistance typically falls into 3 categories. First, there's the it's faster to do it myself trap. Yes, explaining a task might take 20 minutes when doing it yourself might take 15. But what about the next time that task needs doing? And the time after that? Investment in proper delegation pays dividends over time. The second resistance is perfectionism, the belief that no one will complete the task to your exacting standards. This might be true initially, but with clear guidance and a little patience, most delegated tasks eventually meet or sometimes exceed your expectations. Plus, you gain the perspective of someone who might approach the problem differently. The third resistance is simply not knowing who to delegate to. This is where being specific about the skills needed becomes crucial. Some tasks might be appropriate for team members, others for specialised freelancers, and still others for virtual assistants or service providers. When you're truly overwhelmed, asking for help isn't a weakness, it's a necessity. In professional environments, it's easy to fall into the trap of appearing self-sufficient at all costs. We worry that asking for support signals incompetence rather than good judgment. But the most effective professionals I know are masterful delegators who understand that appropriate distribution of work creates stronger outcomes. Start small if delegation makes you nervous. Choose a relatively low-risk task. Be crystal clear with instructions. Set reasonable deadlines and see what happens. You might be surprised by the results and by how much mental space you recover in the process. Remember that delegation isn't about offloading your responsibilities entirely. It's about ensuring that the right tasks are matched with the right skills and availability. Sometimes the most productive thing you can do when overwhelmed is to recognize which items on your list would benefit from someone else's attention while you focus on where you add unique value. Now, let me tell you about something that might just change your life when you're drowning in tasks, working with a virtual assistant or online business manager. Yes, I realise this sounds like a shameless plug for my own industry, but I wouldn't recommend it if I didn't absolutely believe in its power to transform your productivity. When help isn't readily available within your existing team or network, a good VA or OBM can prove truly invaluable. Think about those heart-sinking tasks we just identified through your list-making exercise, the ones that consistently drain your energy or fall outside your zone of genius. These are perfect candidates for outsourcing. The beauty of working with a VA is that you're not just passing off tasks, you're engaging with someone who specialises in the very things that might be bogging you down. Need someone to manage your overflowing inbox, organise your digital files, handle your social media scheduling, update your website, coordinate your calendar. These are all tasks that a skilled VA can take off your plate, often completing them more efficiently than you would yourself. The immediate productivity boost that comes from outsourcing can be staggering. Imagine the psychological relief of ticking multiple items off your to-do list, knowing they're being handled by someone else while you focus on the work that truly requires your unique expertise. That mental freedom alone can supercharge your ability to tackle your remaining priorities with renewed focus and energy. I've seen clients transform their businesses and their stress levels by starting with just 5 hours of VA support per month. They begin by delegating small, discrete tasks and gradually build trust and systems that allow for handling more complex responsibilities. The return on investment isn't just about time saved, it's about quality of work life and sustainable productivity. Many professionals hesitate because they worry about the cost, but I encourage you to calculate the true value of your time. If you bill clients at £100 an hour but spend 3 hours each week on administrative tasks that a VA could handle at £40 an hour, the math becomes compelling. You're essentially losing £210 of potential revenue weekly by not delegating. Another common concern is the effort required to onboard someone new. Yes, there's an initial investment of time to explain your processes and preferences, but a good VA will document everything as they go, creating systems that make future tasks even more efficient. The upfront cost in time pays dividends for months and years to come. Virtual assistance isn't one size fits all. Some VAs are generalists who can handle a wide range of administrative tasks, while others specialise in areas like marketing, bookkeeping, project management, or technical support. An online business manager typically takes on higher-level strategic work, helping to implement systems and coordinate teams. The most successful client-VA relationships are based on clear communication, reasonable expectations, and mutual respect. When you find the right match, it can feel like gaining a partner in your business rather than simply hiring help. And there's something particularly satisfying about knowing you're supporting another entrepreneur's business while strengthening your own. Here's something that might sound counterintuitive when you're feeling overwhelmed. Take a break. I know. When deadlines are looming and your to-do list is longer than your arm, the last thing you want to do is step away. But hear me out, because this productivity paradox is backed by both science and experience. Our brains simply aren't designed for constant, uninterrupted focus. They need periods of rest to function optimally. Think of your productivity like a muscle. It requires recovery periods to perform at its best. When we push through fatigue and overwhelm without pauses, we're actually operating at dramatically reduced capacity, even though it feels like we're being virtuous by powering through. I've experienced this myself countless times. I'll be staring at a challenging project, my mind spinning, productivity grinding to a halt. Then I'll reluctantly step away, maybe to make a cup of tea or take a short walk, and suddenly the solution appears, seemingly out of nowhere. That's not coincidence. It's your brain doing what it does best when given space to process. Breaks aren't just about rest, they're about perspective. When you're deep in the weeds of a project, it's easy to lose sight of the bigger picture. Stepping away allows you to return with fresh eyes and often reveals simpler solutions or helps you recognise when you're overcomplicating things. That mental clarity alone can save you hours of inefficient work. So what kinds of breaks should you be taking? The answer depends on your situation and available time, but I recommend incorporating both micro breaks and longer restorative periods into your routine. For micro breaks, those you can take even on your busiest days, try the Pomodoro technique. Work intensely for 25 minutes, then take a deliberate 5-minute break before starting another session. During those 5 minutes, completely disconnect from your work. Stand up, stretch, look out the window, or just close your eyes and breathe deeply. The key is to fully disengage your brain from the task at hand. Other quick mental refreshers include grabbing a drink away from your computer screen, doing a few minutes of stretching or simple yoga poses, or practicing a brief meditation. Even 2 minutes of focused breathing can reset your mental state and improve subsequent productivity. For longer breaks, aim to build in at least one 30-minute period each workday where you completely disconnect from your tasks. Go for a walk outside, read something unrelated to work, or practice a hobby that engages a different part of your brain. The physical act of changing your environment is particularly effective at shifting your mental state. On a weekly basis, protect time for more substantial restoration, whether that's a fitness class, a trip to the spa, or simply curling up with a good book. I've found that my most productive weeks invariably include at least one 3-hour block where I'm completely unplugged from work demands. The most powerful breaks often involve nature, physical movement, or both. There's substantial research showing that even brief exposure to natural environments can reduce stress hormones and improve cognitive function. If you can't get outside, even looking at images of nature or having plants in your workspace can provide some of these benefits. Remember, taking breaks isn't laziness. It's a strategic investment in your productivity and well-being. The time you lose during breaks is more than compensated by the enhanced quality and efficiency of your work when you return refreshed. Now, with a bit of mental clarity from those breaks we just discussed, let's talk about the power of reflective questioning. This is where you step back, not just physically, but mentally, to examine your workflows and systems with a critical eye. Reflection isn't just a feel-good exercise. It's a practical productivity tool that can dramatically reduce your workload. When we're constantly in reactive mode, putting out fires and racing to meet deadlines, we rarely pause to consider whether there might be a more efficient approach. We get stuck in patterns of, this is how we've always done it, without questioning if there's a better way. I encourage you to schedule regular reflection sessions, whether that's a weekly review on Friday afternoons or a monthly deeper dive into your processes. During these sessions, ask yourself some powerful questions. Is there a better way of doing this? Are there tools I could be using that would automate or streamline this process? Am I the right person to be handling this task? Where am I unnecessarily complicating things? Let me give you a personal example. I used to spend hours each week manually formatting client reports, getting frustrated with the tedious nature of the task. During a reflection session, I asked myself if there was a better way, which led me to research and discover a template system that now saves me at least 3 hours weekly. That's 3 hours I can now spend on high-value work, or importantly, not working at all. The question, who could I be delegating to, is particularly powerful. Many of us, especially entrepreneurs and managers, fall into the trap of thinking we need to handle everything ourselves. We become bottlenecks in our own systems. Sometimes this stems from perfectionism, the belief that no one can do it quite as well as we can. Other times it's from not recognizing our own value, failing to see that our time might be better spent on strategic tasks while someone else handles the operational details. Equally important is asking, what could I be delegating? Look for tasks that drain your energy, ones that fall outside your zone of genius, or routine work that doesn't require your specific expertise. These are prime candidates for delegation. The harsh truth is that by failing to reflect and delegate appropriately, you could be inadvertently doubling your workload. Think about it. If you're spending hours on tasks that someone else could handle in half the time, because they specialise in that area, you're not just wasting your time, but potentially getting subpar results. As the saying goes, can you afford not to think about these things? The answer, especially when you're feeling overwhelmed, is a resounding no. The time invested in reflection pays dividends in reduced workload, decreased stress, and increased effectiveness. Set aside just 15 minutes this week for reflective questioning. I promise you'll identify at least one opportunity to work smarter rather than harder. This mental step back might just be the key to moving forward with greater ease and productivity. Let's talk about a game-changing approach to managing overwhelm. Intentional scheduling. I'm not just talking about having a calendar, I'm talking about strategically using your calendar as a fortress that protects your most valuable resource, your time. Calendar blocking is a technique I swear by in my own business. Instead of just scheduling meetings and appointments, I block dedicated chunks of time for specific projects and tasks. This approach transforms your calendar from a passive record of commitments into an active tool that safeguards your productivity. Think about what typically happens without intentional scheduling. Your day gets fragmented into a series of meetings and interruptions, with crucial project work squeezed into the gaps in between. You find yourself constantly switching contexts, which research shows can cost up to 40% of your productive time. Before you know it, the day is over, and your significant projects remain untouched. By deliberately carving out focus blocks in your calendar, you're making a non-negotiable appointment with yourself and your most important work. I recommend blocks of at least 90 minutes, as this gives you enough time to get into a flow state where your best thinking happens. There's something psychologically powerful about this approach too. When you've allocated specific time to tackle that big project or looming deadline, your brain can release the anxiety of, when will I get this done? You've already answered that question. It's scheduled for Thursday from 10 to 12, for example. This creates a mental containment that prevents work anxiety from bleeding into your entire day. I found it helpful to be realistic about how my energy fluctuates throughout the day. I schedule my most challenging cognitive tasks during my peak energy periods, which for me is early morning. Administrative tasks get slotted into my afternoon energy dip. Your patterns might differ, but honouring your natural rhythms can dramatically boost your productivity. Colour coding your calendar blocks by project or type of work adds another layer of intentionality. At a glance, you can see if your week has a healthy balance of client work, business development, administrative tasks, and, critically, time for rest and personal commitments. Remember to build in buffer time between appointments and tasks. We often underestimate how long things will take, and without buffers, one delayed meeting can derail your entire day. I schedule 50-minute meetings instead of 60-minute ones, giving myself that crucial transition time. The beauty of intentional scheduling is that it acknowledges reality. There are limited hours in the day. If you can't fit all your tasks into your calendar, that's valuable information. It means you need to renegotiate deadlines, delegate more aggressively, or decline some commitments before you reach the breaking point of overwhelm. Start small with this approach. Block just one focus period each day next week and protect it fiercely. No emails, no phone calls, no social media during this time. You'll be amazed at how much progress you can make on important work when you give it your undivided attention for even short periods. Intentional scheduling isn't about cramming more into your day. It's about ensuring the most important things get the time and focus they deserve. It's your secret weapon against the tyranny of the urgent that so often pushes aside the truly important. One of the most overlooked aspects of productivity is taking time to celebrate your wins. When we're constantly moving from one task to the next, one deadline to another, we miss a crucial opportunity to build our resilience against future overwhelm. When you've finally completed that massive project, met that impossible deadline, or cleared that overflowing inbox, what do you typically do? If you're like most people, you immediately move on to the next challenge without pausing. This is a mistake I've made countless times in my own business journey. Here's why recognition matters. Each time you successfully navigate through a period of overwhelm, you're building evidence that you can handle difficult situations. This evidence becomes incredibly valuable psychological capital the next time you face mounting pressure. Think of it like building a mental photo album of your successes. When overwhelm starts creeping in again, and that voice in your head whispers, "I can't handle this," you can flip through this album and remind yourself, "Actually, I've been here before, and I got through it brilliantly." The recognition doesn't need to be elaborate. Sometimes it's as simple as taking 5 minutes at the end of a project to reflect on what went well, what challenges you overcame, and what you learned. Write these reflections down somewhere you can revisit them. Your future overwhelmed self will thank you for this breadcrumb trail of success. I keep what I call a wins journal, where I document completed projects, client testimonials, problems solved, and deadlines met. During particularly challenging periods, reviewing this journal reminds me that my capacity is greater than my momentary doubts suggest. Recognition can also be more tangible. Maybe it's treating yourself to a nice lunch after finishing a major project, taking an afternoon off after an intense work period, or simply sharing your accomplishment with someone who understands its significance. These small celebrations create positive associations with completing difficult work, making future challenges feel more manageable. There's solid psychology behind this approach. Each time you acknowledge an achievement, you're strengthening neural pathways associated with competence and success. You're literally rewiring your brain to be more confident when facing similar situations in the future. This practice is particularly important for those of us who tend to be our own harshest critics. We often have impossibly high standards for ourselves, noticing every flaw in our work while overlooking the tremendous effort and skill it took to complete it in the first place. Recognition isn't self-indulgent, it's strategic. By acknowledging your achievements, you're building the confidence and resilience you'll need for the next wave of challenges. You're creating a powerful counter-narrative to the "I can't handle this" story that overwhelm tries to tell you. One particularly intense period for me came during the school holidays. I was solo parenting full-time while managing multiple clients with varying needs and deadlines. The house was loud and chaotic, routines were out the window, and I was constantly switching gears from managing client expectations to keeping my daughter entertained and fed, all while tackling a never-ending pile of household chores. Every room seemed to trail behind us in a state of mild disaster. It wasn't one dramatic moment of crisis. It was the layered, relentless nature of it all. I was working early mornings before she woke up and late into the night after she went to bed, trying to make sure I was delivering for my clients without dropping the ball at home. And I did it. But the cost was my energy, my focus, and ultimately my well-being. That familiar tightness in my chest crept in, the physical signal of overwhelm I've come to recognize all too well. I questioned whether I was doing any of it well enough, whether I was enough. And the truth is, while I kept things going on the surface, I knew deep down it wasn't sustainable. What helped wasn't pushing through. It was taking a moment to step back and be honest with myself. I started making small but intentional changes, planning ahead for school holidays, being realistic about my availability, structuring my days to include breathing space rather than working at full tilt from start to finish. I gave myself permission to stop expecting perfection and started focusing on sustainability. The biggest lesson? Burnout doesn't prove how committed you are. It proves your systems need work. Overwhelm isn't failure. It's a sign that something needs adjusting. I'm still learning, but I now approach busy periods with more strategy, more compassion, and a lot more honesty about what's truly possible. Well, we've covered a lot of ground today on managing overwhelm and boosting productivity. Before we wrap up, let's take a moment to revisit the key strategies that can make all the difference when you're feeling swamped. First, we talked about facing your challenges head-on, eating that frog, as Mark Twain would say. There's immense power in tackling your most difficult task first rather than letting it loom over you all day. We explored how mantras like "just focus and do it" can provide that mental push you need when procrastination threatens to take over. Similarly, surrounding yourself with positive affirmations creates an environment that counteracts those overwhelming feelings. Breaking down large tasks into manageable chunks, that brick-by-brick approach, helps visualize your workload and gives you the satisfaction of ticking items off your list. And remember, not everything needs to be done by you personally. Delegation is a superpower, whether that's to team members or to a virtual assistant who can take those heart-sinking tasks off your plate. We discussed the counterintuitive but essential practice of taking breaks, stepping away to gain perspective and give your brain the space it needs to process challenges. Coupled with reflective questioning about more efficient ways to work, these breaks often lead to breakthrough solutions. Intentional scheduling and calendar blocking ensure your important work doesn't get consumed by meetings and other commitments. And finally, recognizing your achievements builds the confidence you'll need the next time overwhelm starts creeping in. Now, here's my challenge to you. Don't try to implement all 10 strategies at once. That would be overwhelming in itself. Instead, choose just one or two approaches that resonated most strongly with you today. Perhaps it's creating that comprehensive to-do list to visualize your workload, or maybe it's blocking out specific focus time in your calendar. Start small. Commit to trying your chosen strategy consistently for just 1 week. See how it affects both your productivity and your stress levels. Once that becomes habit, you can gradually incorporate other techniques. Remember, managing overwhelm isn't about eliminating pressure entirely. Some pressure keeps us motivated and engaged. It's about developing your personal toolkit to prevent that pressure from becoming paralyzing. Thank you for joining me on Deadlines and Dirty Dishes today. I'd love to hear which strategies work best for you, so drop me a message on social media or through my website. Until next time, remember that you've handled overwhelming situations before and you have everything you need to do it again.